Yo, what's up guys?
What's up, baby? Did you miss me?
So, you've just downloaded Dead by Daylight.
That's quite big.
Whether that's because a friend recommended you the game, you saw it on sale, or you're just looking for a new multiplayer game to explore. Well, I'm here to run you guys through the very basics of the game, and more specifically in this video, the survivor side. I will be making more advanced tutorials on both sides. So make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to know when I've uploaded. And if this guide helps you at all, please feel free to share it with your friends. And without any further ado, let's get into it.
Is it worth it?
Oh yeah, it's worth it. If you're strong enough.
So first things first, what is Dead by Daylight? Well, Dead by Daylight, or DBD for short, is an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, with two sides to play as, Killer or Survivor. The Survivor's main objective is to escape by powering up 5 of the 7 gens spawned on the map. While there are other side objectives like cleansing totems, opening chests, and with some killers having their own specific side objectives, we will just be covering the very basics of the game today. Once all gens are powered up, 2 exit gates will be highlighted to you, where you and your team must power them up and leave through the door. The killer's objective, however, is to track, hunt down, hook, and eventually kill all the survivors until one remains, where at that point the hatch spawns somewhat randomly throughout the map, and the survivor either has to complete the remaining generators and escape through the exit gate, or more likely will attempt to beat the killer to the hatch to escape immediately. Okay, so now you know the gist of how matches go. Let's show you what the survivors have at their disposal to ensure their survival.
You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like out there.
When you first upload the game, you'll see a menu like this. I will assume that yours is in English, but mine is in French. You will have several options here. Play as Killer, Play as Survivor, Tutorial, which I suggest you complete after this video. It's not super helpful, but can give you some in-context examples of how the game works, without going against real players. Archives, Custom Game, and the shop. Assuming you're here to learn how to play Survivor, you want to click Play as Survivor. Once here, you will be greeted with this scared little guy. He is one of many available survivors in DBD. Each survivor has their own unique set of 3 perks, which give them an advantage, or in some cases a disadvantage, to help you escape from your match, otherwise known as a trial. When you first start out, you will have several free survivors at your disposal. These are Dwight, Meg, Claudette, Jake, Nia, Bill, and David. You might also have Feng Min or Ace if you are playing on console. Now, if we head to the Equipment tab, we can select items, add-ons, perks, and offerings we can take into the trials. So here we have our items. As you can see, there is a colored hierarchy. These relate to the perceived usefulness of the item, add-on, perk, or offering that you choose, where red is the best and brown is the worst. However, red isn't used for perks anymore, but items, offerings, and add-ons range from brown to red depending on their utility, and perks range from yellow to purple depending on their level. The various items you can take into the trials are as follows. Toolboxes, which help you sabotage hooks so the killers cannot use that hook for a short amount of time, or more often to speed up the progress on repairing generators. Keys, which by themselves only allow you to open a closed hatch, but with the right add-ons allow you to read the aura of other survivors or even the killer. Maps, which allow you to read the aura of generators, totems, chests, exit gates, and the hatch depending on what color the map is or what add-ons are equipped. Flashlights, which allow you to blind the killer temporarily, allowing you to sneak away, or in some cases save a downed teammate from being picked up by the killer.
Can you believe it, guys?
And last, but certainly not least, are medkits, which allow you to heal yourself when injured, or to heal other survivors quickly when they are downed or injured.
Oh, that's hot.
Each item has their own unique add-ons to increase the usefulness of the item, so have a look and see what looks fun for you. Now, let's have a look at the perks. When you start out, you will only have the unique perks for the character that you have selected. To earn more perks, you will need to earn blood points, which you gain each time you complete a trial, win or lose. You can then use these blood points as a currency in the blood web to not only find general perks available to all survivors, like Hope or Will Make It, but also to upgrade existing perks that you have already unlocked. For example, here I'm upgrading Ellen Ripley's unique perk, Light-Footed, to level 3, the max levels for perks. In the Blood Web, you are also able to find offerings, items, and add-ons. To unlock these unique perks for all other survivors, you must prestige your character. In order to prestige your character, you must level them up in the Blood Web until they are level 50. At this point, you can spend 20,000 blood points to prestige them, and unlock the 3 unique perks at level 1 that will now become available in every other survivor's Blood Web. You can check your progress by pressing this info icon here. Now we can look at the offerings.
You guys have officially made me lose my marbles!
There are a wide range of offerings, so I won't be going through all of them, but some ones to look out for are map offerings, which allow you to send yourself to a certain map. Hatch or basement offerings, which allow you to spawn the hatch or the basement at specific areas in the map. And blood point offerings, that allow you to earn even more blood points than usual. Now let's talk about health states. Even with no items or perks equipped, survivors each have 4 different health states: healthy, injured, deep wound, or downed. When you are healthy, you make minimal noise and can only be downed by either being hit by a certain killer's power, like the Hillbilly's chainsaw, or exposed by a killer's power or perk, like Ghostface stalking, or the Pig's perk, make your choice. When you are injured, you are susceptible to being downed by any of the killer's attack, whether that's a basic attack or a secondary ability. Deep wound is like a status effect that only comes into play when there are certain criteria filled. These criteria can be that you either have the endurance status effect, which is applied when you are unhooked or using a perk like Dead Hard, or you are hit by some killer's power, like the Legion. When in Deep Wound, you will see a yellow bar next to your character's name, and your screen will become darker and filled with blood splatters. If you are not running or mending, this bar will slowly tick down, by which point you will be instantly put into the down state. It is important that when you are put into Deep Wound that you mend yourself to return to the injured state so that you are not at risk of downing yourself. Once you are downed, your movement speed is greatly reduced. You cannot do anything except recover yourself. The killer is now able to pick you up and put you on a hook. Hooking is a killer's way to sacrifice or kill you and your teammates to get you out of the game. You can be hooked 3 times. The first time you have 3 chances to unhook yourself. However, I would greatly advise against this as you only have around a 4% chance to unhook yourself successfully, and failing these unhook attempts reduces the hook timer. On your second hook, you will be hit with quick time events known as skill checks, during which you will have to hit the spacebar while the red line is in the white area. Again, missing these will reduce the hook timer. If you purposely fail to hit 2 of these skill checks in succession, you will be immediately sacrificed and will be out of the game. On your third hook, you are now immediately sacrificed and you have no way of coming back. But the hook you were sacrificed on breaks and is no longer usable for the killer for the remainder of the trial. Now let's quickly run down the objective for survivors. There are 7 generators, or gens for short, scattered across the map, of which you only have to complete 5 indicated by the icon on the bottom left of the screen. Each generator has 90 charges, and when being worked on by a single survivor takes around 90 seconds to complete, which can be sped up by using toolboxes, perks, or having other survivors to help. Whilst repairing the generator, you will be randomly hit with skill checks, where hitting within the grey box means that you succeed at the skill check, and hitting within the white box gives a progression bonus of 1% to the generator. However, missing a skill check, either by leaving the gen or missing entirely, the gen receives a progression penalty of 10%, and will trigger a loud noise notification which alerts a killer that you've missed a skill check on that gen. As well as this, granted that the generator is not already regressing, shown by red sparks flying from it, the killer is able to kick the generator, causing it to lose 5 charges of progression, and it will continue to regress until progressed for another 5 charges by a survivor. The amount of progress required to stop the gen from regressing is shown by the spark on the bar here. Once a generator is fully repaired, it cannot be regressed by any means. Once all 5 generators are fully repaired, all generators now become powered, and the survivors and the killer are given a notification of the whereabouts of the exit gates. On each map, 2 exit gates spawn on the edge of the map, which can be opened by survivors and the killer, granted that the endgame collapse has not begun. Exit gates take around 20 seconds to power up, and once fully powered the exit gates are opened and the endgame collapse begins. The survivors can leave. A global chime and an orange bar at the top of the screen lets both killers and survivors know that the endgame collapse has begun, and the survivors must leave before the bar is empty. Survivors have around 2 minutes to escape from this point, unless a survivor is downed or on a hook, at which point the bar will become grey and cut the speed of the bar in half, meaning the total time for which the endgame collapse can last is around 4 minutes. Once the timer runs out, any survivors remaining in the trial will be sacrificed by the entity. If you're the last survivor standing, the hatch will spawn randomly opened somewhere on the map. On maps with 2 floors, like Midwich, the hatch can only spawn on the bottom floor, but not in the basement. At this point, the survivor must either complete any remaining generators and power up the exit gates to leave, or to find the hatch before the killer and escape through that way. However, the killer is able to shut the hatch if they find it first, in which case the endgame collapse will start and you have 2 minutes to find the exit gates, power them up and leave. Alternatively, if you have a purple or red key, you can find and open the hatch and escape that way. During the trial, there are groups of objects known as tiles or loops with pallets and windows to separate you and the killer. Let's quickly run down what they are and how to use them. Windows can be identified by a hole in the wall, generally accompanied by a yellow towel draped over the ledge. Windows can be vaulted by both killers and survivors. However, the vault speed of killers is significantly slower. For survivors, there are 3 different types of vaults. A slow vault, which is performed by not holding shift when vaulting, and takes much longer, but does not alert the killer. A medium vault, which is performed by holding shift when next to a window, and is somewhat faster, but does alert the killer. And a fast or running vault, which is performed by running straight towards a window while holding shift, which is significantly faster and does also alert the killer. You cannot perform running vaults from the side like this. During chase, you should generally use fast vaults to evade the killer, as when you are injured, killers can grab you if you slow or medium vault a window. Pallets in general appear more often in loops and tiles, and can be dropped by a survivor to make space between them and the killer. If you drop a pallet on the killer, they will be stunned for a few seconds, and in most cases the killer will need to break the pallet in order to catch up with you. As a survivor, you can also vault pallets, whereas the killer cannot. There are 2 different types of vaults that you can use on pallets, a slow or a fast vault. Much like with windows, fast vaults are generally preferred in order to escape the killer. However, if you were injured, you are able to be grabbed by the killer if they are close enough, regardless of your vault speed. In order to survive, it is important that you use pallets and windows effectively to evade the killer. Now that you know the basics of Survivor, let's quickly run through what the killers have at their disposal to hunt and kill you. So, as we can see here, there are a multitude of killers, ranging from free-to-play characters like the nurse or trapper, to licensed killers like the cannibal and Michael Myers. Each killer has what is called a terror radius, which is an invisible circle surrounding the killer. When a survivor is inside this terror radius, they will be given a visual and audible cue to know that the killer is nearby, which will become louder the closer the killer is to the survivor. It is important to note that most killers have a different terror radius size and sound cue. For example, the Mastermind, aka Albert Wesker from Resident Evil, has the largest terror radius in the game, at 40 meters, and here is what it sounds like. On the other hand, the Hag, which is a free-to-play killer, has one of the smallest terror radius in the game, at 24 meters, and here is what it sounds like. And some killers, like the Huntress or the Trickster, have what we call lullabies, which is larger than the terror radius of the killer, but still gives you an audible and visual cue different to what you would get in the terror radius. Here is an example with the Huntress, comparing her lullaby to a terror radius. During your matches, you can use the sound of the terror radius or the lullaby to identify what killer you are up against before you even see them, which in turn you can use to your advantage to plan out your counterplay. Each killer has their own counterplay, and good survivors will use this to ensure they will survive. For a more in-depth guide to counterplay against certain killers, check out my other videos on my channel. If they're not yet out by the time you're watching this video, be sure to turn on the notification bell so you know when I upload. Now, let's talk about what killers can actually do to hurt you. In DBD, there are generally two types of killers. We call them M1 or M2 killers. But Smiggy, what does this mean? Well, each killer has a basic attack with their M1 button, aka their left click, where they will lunge with their hand or their weapon, and if they hit you, you will lose a health state. But they also each have their own specific and unique power, using their M2 button, aka their right click. For example, the Demogorgon has the ability to charge up a lunge, which allows him to lunge forward a significant distance in a straight line, damaging the first survivor he comes into contact with. Here's what we call an M2 killer, because the main source of damaging survivors is using his secondary ability, or his unique power. Other examples of M2 killers would be Wesker, with his ability to dash and catch survivors, or Bubba, with his ability to charge his chainsaw and insta-down any survivors that are caught in it. On the other hand, the Wraith has the ability to chime his bell and become effectively completely invisible. However, this does not in itself damage survivors, so we call him an M1 killer. Other examples of M1 killers are those like the Spirit, whose ability to phase does not innately damage survivors, or the Clown, whose gas bottles, again, do not damage survivors outright. But these abilities do give an advantage to the killers regardless, so don't underestimate them. It is important to note that the term M1 killer is a generally broad, vague, and somewhat confusing term due to the fact that it was made up by the community, and certain killers that have a power to damage or kill survivors can still be seen as M1 killers. Like the Trapper, for example, is classed as an M1 killer by the community, despite the fact that his traps, his M2 power, damage survivors when they're stepped on. And the Nurse, for example, is classed by some as an M2 killer, despite the fact that her power is only to teleport, or blink as it's known in game, to close the distance between her and survivors, and does not actually damage survivors without the player pressing the M1 button. The main distinction made between M1 and M2 killers, which I feel is agreed upon by the community, is the ability to take away health states, or the lethality of their power, and the range of their power. It is important to understand the differences between these killers to ensure you play against them correctly. However, it is generally accepted in the community that many M2 killers are stronger than most M1 killers, so don't beat yourself up if you lose horribly against a Blight. One last thing to note is that each killer has a different base speed. The general speed for most killers is 4.6 meters per second, or 115% of base speed, where 100% is the survivor's base speed. However, some killers like the Spirit or the Huntress have a base speed of 4.4 meters per second, or 110% of base speed. Every killer in the game, excluding the Nurse, is faster than survivors, and they will always eventually catch up. During Chase, any killer is able to increase their speed by 5% every 15 seconds through a mechanic what we call Bloodlust. The only way that Bloodlust can be broken is if a killer hits a survivor or breaks a pallet. And that's it. That is the basic survivor guide for beginners to Dead by Daylight. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a bit long, but DBD is a very complex game. Anyways, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and check out my Twitch in the description below. And check out my other videos on DBD tips for beginners. The next video I would suggest checking out is what perks I would suggest for beginner survivors, and how to loot, which both should be on screen here. Or if you're more of a murderer, check out my killer beginner guide. All of my DBD tips and guide videos will be in a playlist in the description. More advanced guides will be coming soon, so make sure you've rung the bell so you know when I upload next. And as always, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.